Nice. That's what we need. That's another marketing tie-in, David. Shang-Chi's.
Get that in Wisconsin.
Just bought a ton of cheese on the way back from taking my kid to college.
What about I bought a ton of cheese on the way back from Wisconsin on Monday.
Shang-Cheez-Its.
Yeah, there you go.
Do that. Great Rush River beer.
Oh, nice.
Okay. From River Falls. Have you ever had that, Mike, Mark?
River Falls? I haven't had the beer, but I've been to River Falls, absolutely. So
I recommend it.
Is non-alcoholic
Old Milwaukee? Old Milwaukee? It's a non-alcoholic Old
non-alcoholic Old Milwaukee. Yeah, they make it.
I know they have.
Sounds like sacrilege to me. Anyway, welcome.
That's the point.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here.
We're here to listen to Ian talk.
Yes.
No.
The show is yours.
We all log out and we just turn everything to Ian.
You are here to listen to Ian scream.
A picture of
That's
Ian.
Paul Bettany's job to scream.
I'm gonna be like, how long have you felt this way?
Yes, I see.
David Fowley, comic book movie therapist. I love it. No, so yeah, we're here.
Good money in that though.
There would, yeah.
Online, any forum ever, you can make a quick buck, David.
Hilarious.
You should do it.
So we are fresh off of What If, episode 5, running right into our Shang-Chi discussion. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Memorial Day record-breaking
Labor Day.
Labor Day. I get my Memorial Day and my Labor Day all mixed up. One's the beginning of summer, one's the end of summer.
That's just the one area where you're like my wife.
That's the only area?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Be happy.
I'm kind of glad about that.
I don't want to get all Zardoz in here.
Oh, nice callback. Thank you, by the way, Don, for joining the conversation with Mark and I last night. That was a lot of fun.
You're very welcome.
But there aren't going to be any skimpy red outfits with Sean Connery in them tonight. We are talking about Shang-Chi, a movie that I feel like this conversation is kind of be like that opening or the early set piece in the movie where you've got one guy taking on a gang of 5. And I feel like I'm going to be the Shang-Chi in this situation, but I'm not. Things aren't going to turn out nearly as well for me. Which one of you is going to be Razor Fist in this situation? Okay, Andy, all right.
That's why I love
it. Step right up.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so I high level thoughts. I mean, people, from what I understand, a number of you saw it early, like a few weeks ago now. To those who did see it early, did you watch it subsequently, or did you just see it the one time?
Just the one time for me.
Just one time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume it's still fresh enough in your minds that you can talk about it knowledgeably and with passion.
Well.
And there goes Sean, Don out of the stream. Not Sean. That's
Sean. Well, it could be Sean.
He could be Sean.
Yeah. So if it was Don Chi, it would still just be
Don Chi.
It would just be
Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
Don Chi. Oh, there you go. That's the What If crossover. Sean Cheadle. No. All right. Before we get too deep into the weeds of silliness, who gets to summarize Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings
and Raya and the Last Dragon?
Oh, yeah, well, Don.
There's still my whole summary. Take Raya the Last Dragon, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Live action people in it and less feathers. But that's no. You got a dude who is the. We're going there. No, okay.
You got a dude.
The son of the Mandarin. We're doing not spoilers. Okay. Oh.
He's playing playing a dude, playing another dude.
Playing a dude who
Marvel already spoiled it. If you have Disney Plus,
I know. No, honestly, you have the son of the historical Mandarin who has eschewed his father's wishes to become a fellow assassin and fellow possible, bequeath the mortal user of the Ten Rings, who decides to go to America and become a normal dude. In being a normal dude, he hides his powers and what he can do, and in doing so, he can't hide forever. And a nice little bus fight that everyone puts in all the trailers has kind of alerted the world to there's this guy who's really good at martial arts beating up people on a bus, and sure enough that's how his dad finds him and
he went viral
about and by the way, shout out to the former former Deus member Emmanuel Noisette, that is his MCU character, by the way, the YouTube streamer in the bus. You can't tell me that's not Emmanuel Noisette. But in the meantime, we have a father trying to get his son back into the fold, and whether or not that's going to work out or not, also with other siblings and family dynamics along the way. That's the best non-spoiler thing I can do, but I know that the banner's out. So
yeah, banners out, guns out, sun's out, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, folks, I really did not like this movie, but
I know.
Yeah, I know, David. You saw it with me. I was not the guy standing up in the back cheering and raving. No, there was no. It was a bad audience, but
there was a guy snoring.
Was there really?
Guilty. No. Actually, that brings me.
Oh, yeah, it was like.
Yeah, that actually brings me to my first point. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks how you pronounce the lead character's name. Is it Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi? It's actually
Wow.
Sorry, that's my personal opinion. But I want to see, you guys are all pretty high on this film, huh?
Yeah, super high. Not like high, but yeah, I'm there.
So tell me what do you love about Shang-Chi? I'm not digging. I'm just trying to establish
we should all go around, right?
Yeah, I'll go around. I don't want to start. I just did the summary. Come back to me.
All right, Mike, you're in the other corner.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is the thing. I liked it a lot, and the reason I liked it a lot was because the thing that made it different from the other Marvel films is it plays all the same beats, and yeah, it doesn't feel that original because of it. I give you that if that's where you're going.
That's point 1 of 25.
Okay, good. But I love the action. And finally, there was like a comic book movie for like Marvel does action okay, but at a certain point, you know what the formula is. Someone makes a joke, and then they hit the other character and they fall down, something like that, or they have like a little hero moment, like the portal scene. Everyone had their little moment, right? Well, this one is really just about the way that that Asian cinema does it the best. They keep the camera wide. They don't cut. And you see the hits. I mean, yeah, they covered it, but it was through good choreography and blocking. So so you had all that. The bus scene was amazing. And, they had a lot of other beautiful scenes. And of course, I got swept up with the cinematography. And for once, the music in a Marvel film was music I enjoyed listening to rather than just sounding like background music. And even the jokes were pretty well. They didn't seem too forced in here. Since we're talking spoilers, the return of the man, as we call him, Trevor Slattery.
Trevor.
Yeah. The amazing Ben Kingsley returns, and a role that kind of lets time heal itself, and people stop trashing him for that role. I mean, I loved every second of his humor, and I actually look forward to the jokes, which is something I haven't looked forward to in a while. So they used the formula, but they used it a little, they did it a little better. Now, would I like to see something totally different? Yeah. But I mean, overall, I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't come in hyped or, bored or anything. I didn't know what to expect. So I saw it, and I liked it a lot.
Cool. David, what are you drawing?
We'll see later.
Okay.
The one thing that the one word that kept on popping up as I was watching this was fun. I had fun with it, and it was also fun to see a Marvel movie that was taking taking some interesting dramatic choices, meaning like I really appreciated this whole backstory with Shang-Chi's parents. I thought that was just kind of, first of all, it's just like a kind of like a beautifully told Crouching Tiger introduction type thing. And I just was really captivated by their relationship, and I wanted to know more and what was going on there. So that was really interesting. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'm known by many names. It's just, Tony Leung did a fantastic job as the father. I wouldn't say he struck me as like the ultimate antagonist, you know. But you know, as this kind of conflicted and misdirected father, I thought he did a good job. It was well enough written, but I think he kind of elevated the material a bit. But I think overall, I mean, if you're gonna go there and do this kind of live action, you know, kind of Asian fantasy world kind of thing of, you know, mythic fantasy come to life, kind of like Raya and the Last Dragon type thing, then, you know, go all the way. And I think that it really got creative, especially when we visit the you know, the kind of hidden city. And it does get a little, you know, I think it was Mike that said the fight scenes had, you know, the shots were wide and you could follow everything. Well, until you got to the third act with all the dragons and everything.
Yeah, then
that
CGI
got
comes
fast.
in.
Yeah,
That was
like,
the problem I had. Like when they had to fight all the dragons that burst through the walls. Like, ah, boy, here we go.
I mean, that would be a great opportunity to just, you know, zoom out and, you know, whatever. Anyway,
see the carnage in one shot.
But overall, I mean, had Michelle Yeoh in it. You know, I'm sold. I appreciated how the story developed too, of just this guy who wanted to be, you know, different from his family and wanted to kind of do his own thing, and yet, you know, in typical, you know, Godfather fashion, it pulled him back in, kind of thing. But I liked Simu really well too. I thought he was really good. It wasn't too crazy with the Aquafina, just enough Aquafina. I like their dynamic, and I'm really curious to see where else. I have some more things to say, but I'll wait. But overall, it was fun.
Cool. Mark.
Oh, me next. Well, one, this was the last movie I got to see with my son before he was in college, and we left him behind. So I had to check out the movie theater to make sure it was worthy of my son, and it was. So that was a good thing. But for me, yes, and I said this in my review that I just posted too. Everybody's right. There's no breaking new ground here as far as the formula. As far as an origin story, it's not necessarily bringing anything new to the table, but I had a blast with this. I'm a big fan of martial arts, kung fu, fantasy films. One of the downfalls for those type of films is usually they can't get the budget you really want to. They work within the budget they have, but you can tell they're working on a limited budget. So here you have the Disney financial machine behind a martial arts fantasy film, and then you combine it with what they have for MCU and have that formula that works for me. And in the end, mix it together. I loved it. I was very impressed by just how full all in they went with the martial arts fantasy elements, where we get into that whole third act with the whole world in it. I, in all honesty, whenever I first started watching the MCU, never thought I would see stuff like that. I never expected to see that. And another reason for me, and my son too, we ended it, and it's funny, it's one of the first films where he and I sat there, looked at each other, go, I really didn't have any problems with this film. And he's like, me neither. We had a blast. We had fun. No, it wasn't anything new, but we had a good time. You're right. Fight scenes, cinematography was good. Aquafina's character played a better role than I thought she was going to when she's first introduced. I thought, she's going to be the comedic sidekick, but she actually plays a role in the arc of the plot in the end, and even gets to contribute to the very end, which surprised me in a good way. I was like, okay, that's good. She wasn't just comedic relief. So while it was formula in some ways, it was just fun. It was handled with an energy that I was, was hoping it would. And it was fun to see a martial arts fantasy film with money behind it. I mean, with the special effects and that machine behind it showing you what you can do with it. And in all honesty, the after credits scene was anticlimactic for me, in all honesty, because I enjoyed this film like I enjoyed Doctor Strange and like I enjoyed the first Ant-Man, because no offense to those wonderful characters they set up in the MCU, the core group, it was fun seeing an MCU where you didn't have them completely remind you, hey, you're in the combined universe. Here's Iron Man. Here's Captain America. I mean, they mention it. We do get Abomination. We do get, a couple characters, but still, those were even handled in a way to where you weren't getting fully slapped in the face until that after credit sequence that, oh, yeah, it's part of the Avengers. There's the Avengers. Oh, yeah, they're part of that group. They left it to the end, which made me happy because then I could focus on this character, get connected with this character without having to be reminded, oh, yeah, he's part of the bigger universe and there's other superheroes. Plus, this is the first Super Marvel film in a while. And I know we just had Black Widow and I felt it there, but even more so here, where you had a hero that you actually felt peril. No offense to Marvel, to Doctor Strange, no offense to, but this is the first character where he was fighting where you realize, yeah, he's a good fighter until he gets into the 10 ring part and the fancy. He could get seriously hurt. You know what I mean? He's not going to, but in the back of your mind, there's still at least a little bit to where he's human. Hawkeye has the Avengers around him through the most of it. So even though, yes, he's a human guy with no special power, he's got guys with superpowers and super healing all around him. Whereas Shang-Chi is on a bus with Razor Fist and he just has his skills. And that's what I loved about the character was up until that point, you're like, wow, you even though, it's the superhero, he's the title character, you still have that little inkling like, well, something, he could get seriously hurt. So you have that feeling. Whereas if you got Cap fighting, yes, there is a little peril, but at the same time, unless someone fully skewers him, and even then, he's probably going to super heal and he'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Points taken. Annie.
That's me. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
No. I had such a good time watching this movie. I really didn't go in with extremely high expectations just because the rings themselves were altered from the comics and they were given more Infinity Stone-like properties in the comics where this was just like an all God having power. I love Simu Liu. I think he's wonderful. I think he's adorable. It was a lot of fun watching him just really show off what he does best. And I think it's about time that Marvel has introduced martial arts into its mainstream media. I know they tried it with Iron Fist. And that, that's why nobody talks about Iron Fist. But, I think seeing this diversity, especially in this Chinese fantasy genre, that shows that heroes really don't need to have powers is super cool. The third act totally lost me. CGI mess. I couldn't focus. I couldn't look at anything. I was really bummed that they didn't put in Fin Fan Foom at the end. I really thought that would be cool. The dragon that was given away. I brought a good friend of mine who, was one of my last times seeing him before he moves out of the state. And I thought it'd be a great send-off to see him and just kind of make that happen. And every time Wong was on screen, I had an elbow buried into my ribs. And I felt like Wong was there for no reason except for that anticlimactic end scene. That being said, I do like Benedict Wong. I think he's wonderful comedically. But he needed to be played up a little bit more. It's not the Benedict Wong show. It's the Simu Liu show. And it was. He really does prove himself as an actor. He's a Marvel fan. He's a Star Wars fan. He's a total nerd. He knows what people like this want, and he definitely delivers it. It's light. It's fun. It's action-packed. It's really... I was like, this makes me want to start practicing martial arts.
Man, now I want to see it again.
Do that.
There we go.
I really want to learn how to move like that. I want to learn how to fight with that without 300 of pounds of CGI weighing me down. Of course, I like Aquafina. I really do think that her best performance was in The Farewell. However, I think it was she really does know how to play her stereotype and play her role. And she knows how to do that well, and I think that the pairing between she and Liu was just really cute.
Cool.
Got to finish
back to Summary Man.
All right. No, Totally echo where the other dais is gone. You know, the music, the sets, the fantastic fight choreography and work that they've done there is good. If I got to add a second or third piece to it, what I'll say is one, this is a very, very likable hero, you know, and that helps a little bit. And I know the hero arc of origin stories that we've seen too much is I don't know if I really want to do this, and you know the angst part that's always there, whether it's a Green Lantern movie, a Spider-Man movie, there's always a bit of too much of that. So for this to kind of be a guy who can shake that off quickly and also still kind of use what he can do is really helpful, because he's kind of a combination between the uncertainty, which is going to be there to a little bit, but then he still is able to kind of turn into the you know, I know you guys don't like when I invoke this, but like Captain Marvel, a person who's a badass, who knows they can be a badass and uses their powers to be a badass. I think the other thing that helps this movie a ton, and I give huge points to, this for me, am I going to go here and do this? This is the second best Marvel villain to Thanos. I love the relatability, like in terms of the relatable motives. You know, we've had more showy villains, we've had more evil villains, we've had more probably more substantial villains because of what they can do in the comics and all that. But I'll take the I don't know, the buy-in and the motives of this villain right there with, you know, next to Thanos as a guy we're like, you know what, he's not that far off, and it's not the worst thing he's going for. And to have him have his family angle and be played by Tony Leung, who's amazing, helps it a ton for me.
Yeah, you know, I did like that villain because it's weird. If you're in the MCU, you're either are an orphan or you have a screwed up child.
Right.
Yeah.
Killmonger.
But yeah, exactly. They made the screwed up childhood thing work with this. You know, Dad. Dad is a guy who is so angry and violent because he's had his heart torn out when he didn't trust anyone. You know, if I remember from seeing it like 3 weeks ago or something.
And he played Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah. You know, they should make a Shang-Chi version of that. But yeah, I mean, you feel terrible, like, you know, his wife got killed or something, and then he wanted to come get her back. And then it turns out that his motivation is he's going to go and burn the forest down to find her when really she's not there, and he can't let go of his grief. Like, that's actually a pretty good motivator, rather than just, I'm a bad guy, I'm going to do bad guy things. Like, we'll see what they do with Kang, if they can make him relatable. I mean, they kind of did with Loki, kind of not, you know, sort of in between. And yeah, Thanos, he was kind of like, you know, the Joker of the world, right? Like, he was the guy who makes a point that you shouldn't agree with, but he's kind of right about. You know? And that's what,
Mike, did you agree with the Joker?
I mean, well, all of us agree with a little with the Joker.
Anarchy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
like you even more.
Moved it a little bit.
Andy, I think someone set off the smoke alarm in your dorm. You got to go, right?
Yeah, see you later.
Giving you your out.
Her roommate accidentally pulled the network cable. Oh no!
Oh no! There goes our Ethernet. What? I can't hear you.
I think
we're talking evidence I have to delete on and take that.
What's interesting about the villain in this one is that we don't just see the bad things. In fact, he tries to redeem himself, and something bad happens because the stuff that he did in the past comes back to biting him in the ass, because it ends up breaking his heart, because it ends up hurting the one he loves. He tried to change and he didn't. It's that really thin redemption thing to where, hey, I'm going to try to turn over a new leaf because I found someone who makes me realize there's more to life than just being a huge crime boss. But then when that happens, he just goes full blown, well, I'm making my kid a freaking assassin and he's going to go kill these guys. You know, I mean, you see his motivation, at least. We don't always see that, especially with Marvel. We get exposition, but we don't actually see the evidence of them in their daily lives. We don't get that with a lot of villains. And granted, I know that doesn't make interesting cinema a lot of times, but here it gives you just enough to where you're like, okay, he's a bad guy, but you get that hint of what's motivating him. You may not agree with what's motivating him, but you can see why he's got to the place where he's at. You still think he should stop, but
and he's not twirling a mustache or sniveling or cracking jokes. He's a deadly serious, on his level where he wants to be villain, and we don't get that a lot. We get cartoons because even Kang in Loki is spitting his little thing and making it a cartoon.
Yeah, he's doing a Willy Wonka the whole time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
It's
Kang
true.
kind of inspired his performance from Gene Wilder in there.
Right, as we discussed on at the end of Loki, that's a version of Kang. We're gonna see a very different version coming up, I think, soon in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So I understand that critique of that performance, but I don't think it's
No, I liked it. I dug it. But
yeah. So I love all of you. I fundamentally disagree with every single point that has been made on this panel tonight. Every single point.
No
Five
fun.
of us couldn't skew
Everyone.
him right there.
Even
No
the
fun for Ian.
post-credit scene. You disagree that the post-credit scene were not good.
I don't even remember what it was.
I would say, okay, let me rephrase that, Annie. Thank you for keeping me honest. Every single point in defense of this movie, I disagree with. The post-credit scene was indeed lame. We are talking spoilers here, but first of all, I understand we were in a pandemic, but Marvel could have sent someone out to Mark Ruffalo's house in a full-blown hazmat suit to give him a haircut and put him on a treadmill. Jesus Christ!
Or give him some Grecian formula to get that gray out of there. No,
I'm
offense
just
to
wondering
Ray
why
Maroon,
he's not Hulk, Smart Hulk. What happened?
I don't know. But I've seen stuff online subsequently that when they're looking at the stuff that comprised the rings, that there's a light and an unidentifiable source. It wasn't vibranium. But some people are saying, well, that's because it's oh my god, Galactus or something like that. I don't know how it relates to that, but
whatever.
Oh boy.
so
Internet
it's a
fan
setup,
theories.
right? So help me out here.
Sure.
Tony Leung.
Yes.
Where would I know
Wong-Kar-wai.
him from?
It's
Everybody's
Wong-Kar-wai.
losing their.
He's a
Wong
Wong
Kar
Kar
Wai
Wai.
in the movie for love.
Someone said
Chungking
it in like
Express.
comment section reviews.
Okay,
It's
but
the
here's
guy
the
from
thing.
It's like Kim's Convenience or something like that.
That's
That's
was,
Simu Liu.
That's Simu Liu. Yeah.
He's like
Yeah.
the Hong Kong Daniel Day-Lewis. Like he's
Okay, so
Role.
but here's the thing.
really?
I keep hearing
he's
these amazing things about
that you've never seen.
yes.
yeah.
And so
You gotta
watching this
do that.
movie, it's kind of like if you told me watch Transformers 4 because John Malkovich is in it, I'd be like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to get from this because this
For rewatch.
I worked on it. I didn't see it.
well, you were very lucky. No, I mean the thing is, I don't doubt that if I watch some of these films that he was in, that people are praising, that I could be blown away. But watching this movie, I'm like, I feel like it's it's that guy. Oh my God, he is in this movie. I can't believe it, and so that automatically gives it cred. I didn't see anything spectacular in the performance. I also thought that the character was pretty terribly written, and I feel the problem with this movie is, Destin Daniel Cretton. I don't think he wrote it. Is someone else wrote it, or did he co-write
co-wrote
it,
it.
or
He
he was
co-wrote
okay?
He's in there on a piece of that. Yeah.
He co-wrote.
All right. I feel like the writers set out to make a Tarantino-style narrative without writing it first linearly and then dividing it up to see how it would double back on itself. Because from the jump, there's all sorts of problems with Shang-Chi's father and his motivations and his intelligence and his life, right? So we established early on in the opening narrative that 1,000 years ago, or however long it was, he discovered the 10 rings, which we have already established are the MacGuffin, Infinity Gauntlet powered, or equivalent power rings that can kind of do anything. And they allow him to become this ascendant crime boss. He forms the 10 Rings criminal organization, which is behind assassins and murders and political and corporate intrigue. So he basically becomes one of the most powerful, people in the world as far as like shadow agencies. We saw this going back to Iron Man 1. So he's the kingpin of the underground. He discovers Talo, this mystical land that apparently holds secrets to another dimension. So he's like, well, I have no more worlds left to conquer. I'm going to go check this place out. He goes there. He finds a guardian of this, the secret way into this village. He fights her. They fall in love.
Yeah.
They start a family. So this guy has been around for 1,000 years. He's never fallen in love.
Never aged.
Never. Well, I can understand. I can understand.
Doing that. Can you just not age as well?
I'm already doing that. What do you mean?
You realize
you don't?
I haven't since the last episode. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's that line from, Big Trouble Little China. Oh, come on, Wang. You can't tell me over 1,000 years you haven't found someone to fit the bill? Come on, Wang. You're doing something wrong. And he's like, oh, there have been others, to be sure. But we all keep trying like fools. He's tried.
I don't know if James Wong was.
Thank you. He's tried. What the difference is with this character is the fact that she kicked his ass.
Yeah.
He may have fallen in love or found women that have loved him, but they most likely
they've all been weak. They've all been weak women, is what you're saying. He's never met a strong woman before.
What I'm saying is
they 1,000 years.
What I'm saying is he may have met women who, with the circles that he travels in, may have met women who basically want to be with him mostly because of the power that he has or the position. Not saying it's true because we don't see it, but I'm just saying that his experience over 1,000 years, he either may not have been quite looking for it because he was too busy focusing on building his empire, which I think is more of the case, or whoever he's run into, he finds out in the end that they are just not for him because either they're not his equivalent or above, because he's the type of arrogant guy who
I understand where you're coming from, Mark, but none of that is discussed or mentioned. He basically meets this woman, she beats Look, imagination is something I wish that I'd seen anywhere in this movie, but they're just not. So
the faceless creature carried around by Ben Kingsley, was that not imaginative?
The plush toy. Yeah, the little okay. That's a marketing dare. Like, oh my God, I bet we could put out a stuffed animal that has no face and wings and just go.
I love
people. Easier at the production line.
I'm more like
just pulled one up.
I'm more than like the lions that actually look like those old lion statues that you saw, only they were living versions of it. I loved the artwork in those things, the design of those.
The production designers, they essentially went to a Chinese restaurant and said, animate all this, and then put it on screen.
Wow.
This movie is about as culturally relevant to China. This movie is about as culturally relevant to China as Panda Express. I mean, there's nothing in here.
There were no pandas in this movie.
Well, they shot it.
Look, here, no. Here's the thing.
That's how you.
If you look at look at Black Panther, you're talking about a hidden African culture that's technologically advanced, sure, but there was imagination, there was attention to detail in the clothing, the environments, the weaponry, the set design that hadn't been seen not only in the Marvel universe, but very rarely anywhere else. And there's a reason that team won the Academy Award. This looked like every other, hey, Hollywood wants that, big fat Chinese buck. We're just going to dress up everything in this multi-million-dollar cultural wardrobe that these movies are all interchangeable as far as the production design. But let's get back to the plot with Mr. Shang-Chi Sr., whatever his name is. He falls in love with this woman. They start a family. No, this guy is not the Mandarin. We're going to get to that. And I didn't talk about the Ben Kingsley thing. I'm talking about the fact that he decides he's so in love with this woman. He decides to settle down. I'm not going to do the life of crime anymore. I'm going to raise these kids because I love this woman. And, she gave me a beautiful son and daughter. That's great. In no universe that I have seen in cinema, or could I imagine fathoming in the real world, can the most powerful crime figure, one of the most powerful, because at this point the MCU is about 1,000 shadow organizations, but he can't just say, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to turn off the shadowy secret global government, criminal empire, and just walk away to start a family. No one came after him to fill that power vacuum. No one in the organization said, well, I'm sorry, you can't just turn your back on us.
That would be very cliche.
Well, no, but it also would have been.
He wants your plot twist back.
No, but it would have been honest, because I'm sitting there thinking, you can't just be the head of Hydra and say, I'm not going to do Hydra anymore. These things always have repercussions, right? So then his wife dies,
Mhm.
and he decides, okay, I can understand him wanting to, get revenge. He all of a sudden goes back to his evil ways. Like it's that one thing that snaps him back to being a criminal mastermind. And he just picks up the remnants. He says, hey, guess what, everybody? We're getting the gang back together. So after abandoning his criminal empire, he puts the whole thing on ice for 8 years or 10 years. And he just says, hey, guess what? I'm back. And everything just starts up again. I guess he pulls out the rings. There's no resistance. These are all things that I would like to see in a movie that actually explores the idea of a criminal empire dad and a superhero son. But this film wants to be so many different other things that it never quite focuses in and gets the story details right. Let's fast forward to the whole thing with the wife. He pulls his son and daughter, who, he's got this whole thing about, girls can't be in my army. So the daughter trains herself
on her own,
on her own, and becomes a better fighter than Shang-Chi by watching him train. Sorry, that's total horseshit. You can read all the Wikipedia entries and watch all the YouTube videos on martial arts. You still need to grapple with people in order to master a martial art.
Hold on, though.
I love that you got the DC show as the first hand up, like, hey, now, listen to this.
Hey, wait a second, though. She wasn't the good fighter when they were together. She learned on the streets. Yeah. We didn't see it, but we established that she said she built that empire on her own. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the neighborhood, it doesn't mean she learned. Shang-Chi gave up the fighting. He went into hiding to be delivery boy. So he didn't really work on his skills anymore. Whereas she went into an environment where she had to fight to survive. One, because of her gender, and two, just because she was still in the underground world. So she learned.
That still does not explain, once she leaves the compound and goes out into the hard, dirty streets of Macau, how she didn't get her ass handed to her.
No, Ian,
who says she didn't?
If she wasn't Shang-Chi's sister, if it was a brother per se, and they decided to alter the plot a little bit more from the comic origins, would you still say that he could be accredited as this self-trained martial artist that can kick ass and take names?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No, because it goes back to the same thing of, if you are, because that's the narrative explains, and this gets back to the choppiness of flashing forward and flashing back and looping back around, where we have to piece this stuff together. Whereas if you're telling this story in a linear fashion, A, I think you get more meat on the bones, and B, I think they have to grapple with some of these questions that pop up, because it's established that the dad is training Shang-Chi and all this stuff, and the sister is embittered, rightfully so, and she's watching from the sidelines. I think it would have been, I'm sitting there rewriting this entire plot while I'm watching the movie, because what I'm seeing is just ridiculous. If Shang-Chi realized what his father was doing to him and didn't like it and didn't want any part of it, but at night or in secret, he trained his sister and brought her up in the ways of these martial arts, it would have been, I'm sorry, they use this in Black Widow already with the whole like gender twist of the supervillain. But what was the name of the blue costumed? No, in this movie, the main assassin. Name? Yeah,
there's a name in the comic. I forget
the mask.
Right, the masked. The father's kind of like chief assassin. If that had turned out to be the daughter, in disguise, because the father was so focused on his empire and his son that he never realized that his chief assassin brought up from the ranks was actually his daughter, and she proved that she was worthy, and then she killed him or something like that. That would have been much more interesting than this, one-dimensional kind of bad guy who gets, offed. I don't even remember what happened to that character in this movie. But yeah, so it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl watching in the shadows and then running away at 16 on the streets of Macau with like hardened criminals and then just becoming this mastermind. I would have believed it more if the father had said, well, my son ran away, I don't have anybody else, I'll train the girl. And then, she becomes the assassin, the kung fu master. I would have bought that a lot more. But let's jump ahead to the whole thing with the mom. There is a wall within Ta Lo that guards a portal to a different, essentially a hell dimension. There's this giant, Cthulhu monster that's behind there. It starts sending out this voice in the, Wenwu's voice starts penetrating what is Shang-Chi's father's name?
Wenwu.
Wenwu, you got it.
Oh, what was his mom's name?
It
Lee.
was
Lee.
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 L.I.
Okay,
Mhm.
sorry, I'm getting these
Played
confused.
by Fala Chen.
Yes. So Lee's voice starts seeping into Wenwu's consciousness and saying, come free me. And he's like, I don't know how. And she's like, well, there's these stones and there's a hidden forest map and all this other stuff. So he goes to send assassins after his son to lure him back to Macau to meet up with the sister so that the assassin could find both of them to bring them back to the dad. It's like this really convoluted mess of a story. The dad wants to go to find Tallow so he can free the dead wife. This guy's been around 1,000 years. He's got these mystical rings. He's apparently so well traveled that he's seen a lot. He understands a lot. He's not the least bit suspicious that there's this disembodied voice using, it could be a ruse. It could be, a mentalist trying to prey on him. It could be a demon from another dimension hiding behind a wall. There's no visual apparition of the wife. We see flashbacks, establishing their kind of history, more and more flashbacks. But I just didn't buy that this guy could be that dumb. It's not even like a Pet Cemetery situation where she's freshly dead and he's like, I can bring her back. She's been dead for a decade. And then all of a sudden, hey, come find me. I'm in this magical place. What?
He's mostly dead.
Yeah, mostly dead.
They established that he is so in love with. I love the DC Shill is defending a Marvel film.
Do it.
Yeah, but it's the kind of
we've gone through our multiverse now. All right,
it's the
that was a terrible joke.
Freshman year poetry idea of love. He loved her so much that he would go to the ends of the earth for her and all that stuff. Sure, but hearing the voices of the dead and trampling over people to get to a mystic wall. Let's even say that is, let's give him the benefit of that doubt.
Okay.
He gets to the wall. He starts punching with the 10 rings. Fucking demon bats start flying out of this thing.
Yeah.
He's like, my wife's back there. Again, he's an idiot. I'm not afraid of this guy. Plus, he's supposed to be the Mandarin. Once again, Marvel craps all over one of their main... Okay, he's not the Mandarin because we established that was Ben Kingsley in a CIA op or whatever, but he's essentially... Okay, help me out here, David. Where am I going wrong?
The Mandarin was a label that, basically the Western civilization slapped on the Ten Rings cult.
Yes.
And they propped up this, mousy British guy, actor, to play a role. The Mandarin is just, it wasn't a name that he ever embraced or, said. It's just like,
okay, but let's talk about the Marvel Comics understanding of this character. The
comics.
The thing that pissed off the Marvel Comics fandom when they took the Mandarin and turned him into a drunk British actor. This, when Wu is supposed to be the real guy, the person that this, that was actually working behind the scenes and pulling all the strings, right?
Okay, yeah.
That guy should not be this pathetic. Let's put him up against Thanos. Thanos, I understand he had this kind of a corrupted ideal that gradually drove him insane. This guy has a wife who's been dead for a decade. He gets back into his life of crime, and then he starts hearing voices, and he doesn't think anything is suspicious about that.
The dude's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
1,000 years will do that to you, man.
Right, but he should be. I don't get the sense that he's been around for 1,000 years. I don't get the sense that he's actually crazy. He's just playing this corrupt crime boss, criminal dad who looks like he's about 60 years old.
Well,
and
he's a little crazy if he's believing that he can somehow save his wife by just hearing voices.
And that's right. That's what I'm getting at. That's the character that that's the character that I'm understanding the screenplay wants me to believe. But in terms of the performance, you guys are talking about he's not twirling his mustache, and that's a good thing. If this guy is this crazy and or this dumb, I want to see a little bit of mania in this performance so I can be like, where is the disconnect here?
All right.
What if we see mania, then we're gonna disconnect emotionally from him a little bit.
Well, if it's poorly written, sure, you can have a crazy villain and have sympathy for them. It's entirely possible with the right combination of writing and performance.
But I mean,
well, let's say just with the script now, like if you had the performance, I think that's kind of the right balance they found. If he said this stuff and you could tell, like, oh, he's a psycho, like then it wouldn't be as interesting because we kind of want to see him the way his son sees him, his dad as someone you understand and listen to and reflect on. But I do understand some of your arguments, but I'm sorry, I did cut you off, Don. Go ahead.
No. I'm kind of with you where I don't think crazy has to always be, crazy. I think
let's get crazy.
Yeah. I think over devotion.
You want to get crazy? Let's get crazy.
So I think over devotion to the one love you have can get you crazy enough to listen to anything and do anything.
Are you
with
speaking
the power
from
you have?
experience here?
I am. I am. But no. When I said no mustache twirling and no fiendish little schemes of this and that, like he got his revenge on the people who killed his wife, and then he just kind of kept on going with just pushing that kind of pride and honor, agenda that kind of makes him. I kind of go. I know you don't see a cultural piece of this movie, but I kind of feel like that's what you would get out of a very traditional person, like especially with the way he discounts his daughter and expects his son to do this and expects his son to do that. Like if you put that old-fashioned, so to speak, persona to a person that powerful and to a person who's been wronged in this sort of way, but a person who's also been corrupted in their own kind of way on another side of it, I think you'd get a villain that is like this, that you can listen, you can hear to, that doesn't fly off the handle, but has enough conviction into what they do and what they believe that they don't think they're wrong. And we buy that for a little bit because you look at a person like that and go, man, he's got it. I'm not saying that they have it all together, but when you have all that power and you have all that ability, would you really go that far in those many directions if you weren't feeling like you were really right, or maybe even a little bit right anyway? So now I get it though. You squish all that into a 2-hour comic book movie with this and that and the nonlinear thing, and it can be convoluted. But I don't know. I see a steadiness that is born of sadness and tradition, and that was enough to be different than the mustache twirler.
What I saw with it is him dealing with grief as most people do. There's a reason why you have some people who, when they have their spouse die, they go to the same places every day. They go to they want that person back. They're trying to get any connection back. And granted, yes, I know we didn't see that on screen, but his motivation. You're right about the hearing the voices, but at the same time, here's a guy who has godlike power, as you said, with these rings. He can do just about anything, yet he lost his wife due to something he did. He has that grief and that guilt in him, which you do see from him. And so he wants anything, any chance at all to prove that he can bring her back, because it's the one thing that he didn't have the power of, and he thought he was a god. So the fact that he got taken down a notch, he doesn't like this. So not only is his motivation love to get her back, and he's driven by that, but like you said, he's ignoring the bats. He's ignoring the bats because he believes this is his last chance to prove that he can bring her back and that he's all powerful, and he doesn't care who he plows through. It's similar in a way to Thanos dumping his daughter over the edge to get the Soul Stone, even though he actually truly cared for this woman as his daughter. I know there's a little more motivation with Thanos, but I mean, I'm serious. As far as his motivation goes, he wants the power so badly, or prove himself so badly, that he is ignoring some of the red flags. And that's what I got from it, is that, yeah, there's bats and evil. He doesn't care at this point because he thinks he's finally found the point to where he can bring her back, and that proves he's still the man with the 10 rings.
And to go to the place you could never reach that supposedly had more than what he had.
Right.
All of that motivation in terms of trajectory. I'm buying all that.
Because he's blinded by love. But no,
well, and that's honestly, that's the thing is, I was not afraid of this guy at all, and I couldn't sympathize with him. I couldn't believe in his struggle. Mostly, I could not believe that I couldn't get invested in him because I couldn't believe that he had been around this long. He has mystical rings. In the 1,000 years he's been around, has he ever encountered ghosts or things from other dimensions or other forms of mysticism? Could he not understand that he was possibly being manipulated, especially if he has literally conquered every corner of the globe through his criminal enterprises? The character description is not the character that I see playing out in this movie. And I was just thinking, if this film had ditched Aquafina and the sister and the assassin and all this other stuff and just focused on this really keen father-son drama in the context of a Marvel movie, I think it would have made a lot more sense and a lot more impact. As it stands, I mean, here's another thing. I was talking about Tony Leung. Simu Liu, I've heard a lot of great things about. I've never seen Kim's Convenience. I've never seen him in anything. I watched a couple of interviews with him this afternoon because I knew we were going to be talking about it. He is a charming, funny, charismatic guy who is, I'm sorry, I don't get any of that in this movie beyond the first 10 minutes, because when he's in San Francisco hanging out with Aquafina and they're kind of doing this, will they, won't they, platonic rom-com, thing, it's cute, it's fun. The jokes were all predictable and unfunny. The Gina joke was done, I think, in a Deuce Bigelow sequel 12 years ago. But he's kind of naturalistic and fun. But when he's switched on, he gets Jason Bourne on the bus, and he remembers his martial
Jason
artist
Reborn.
past. Right. He just becomes this kind of a wet noodle of purpose and destiny, and it's just all gone through the rest of the movie. And by the third act, he is literally just standing there posing with CGI going on all around him. We kind of get a little revival of that in the closing scene where they're back talking to their friends about recounting their adventures, where of course when that setup is in the beginning of the movie, we're oh, here's where we're going to be back right before the end credits as they talk about their wacky adventures, completely predictable and not funny. But yeah, Simu Liu, Shang-Chi is a side character literally being driven around through his own film. And it just kind of bugged me. And that's okay, because by the time we got to the point where they hang out in the Sanctum Sanctorum, I'm I could see him as a cool supporting character in an upcoming Avengers movie, but I don't know that I need to see a second Shang-Chi movie.
Well, unfortunately, at the end of this movie, they power leveled him up, and that's
right.
I wish they would have cut the title in half. If it was just Shang-Chi, great. The Legend of the Ten Rings, we don't really get that here.
We don't get anything about the Ten Rings except they're powerful and they were found somewhere a long time ago.
And don't call them rings; they're bands, okay? I mean, bands doesn't
yeah.
really ring, Yeah. Sorry.
Well, in the end, they're MacGuffins, just like the Infinity Stones.
The Legend of the Ten MacGuffins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they did a great job of building up those Infinity Stones and making you care about what they are and stuff like that. Here's just, there's 10 rings that make us invisible. Go.
Yeah.
It's
so now
he's convoluted, the title.
But now he's a superpowered, protagonist, where he wasn't for so long in the Marvel Comics universe. And he still isn't really in the Marvel
Well, no,
Comics
he's got
universe.
these rings.
No, I'm saying in the
rings,
comics, he's not.
Right.
In the MCU, apparently he is. I don't know. I mean, I would have liked if the movie. I don't mind keeping its humor, but I wouldn't have mind if the movie, again, I thought it was fun, but it would have been cool if it kind of paid tribute to how this character even came about in the 70s, because of the craze and the fandom of martial arts movies, the Kung Fu TV series. They came up with Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. Now, I know a lot of people have different thoughts about the term Kung Fu and the definition of it and how it's used and everything, but they didn't necessarily have to use Kung Fu or whatever. But even if they just call it Shang-Chi, I like the idea of here's this guy who has to hide his abilities, and he's basically kind of hiding in plain sight until this whole bus scene thing. And he realizes that, my father's come for me. I just wish they would have had more of a I don't know, if you're gonna go for it's more or less more of a fantastical a nod to a fantastical genre than it is more of a martial arts genre to me. Although there's some great action sequences and everything, I think we quickly lean heavily on the what's it called, wushu. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's fine, but I don't know. It does take away a bit from the main character, and although I found the story of his parents, like I said, very interesting. It would have been, and maybe you can explore this in another movie. I don't know, but it just seems like to have and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and not really deliver that legend, and just kind of, well, in a kind of flashback montage, this is how Wenwu found these rings, but not really saying how he found them. He stumbled upon them thousands of years ago. Okay, did these rings keep him living for thousands of years, or why is he pretty much immortal? I don't know.
Well, that's actually a good point, because at one point when he gives up the rings, essentially puts them in a box to raise his kids before his wife dies.
Yeah.
Does that, if those rings are keeping him alive, did he age during that 10 years? Was there any kind of like a drain, like, oh, since you're not wearing these things, you're going to start feeling some of these effects,
a little gray in the
some
temple.
decrepitude, right?
He did start to age once he put the rings away from the flashback scene to when he put the rings back on. They did have some aging on him.
No, I'm not talking about just the 10 years between, from the time he starts waiting. Yeah, I understand 10 years have passed, but I'm saying if you are alive 1,000 years ago and you find these rings and they keep you young, when you take them off for 10 years, does that accelerate your aging process? Does it deteriorate your health? Is there any kind of a struggle? Like, that would have been an interesting story. I'm giving up the rings, but these rings are also what's keeping me alive, so I don't know if I can give them up. Is that going to cause any kind of a problem with my wife? Let's also talk about the wife, all right? She doesn't have any problems or qualms with the fact that her husband was a murderous terrorist mastermind for 1,000 years. Oh, he's just a loving dad now. Great. No qualms.
Love is
one
a crazy thing.
Semi-dimensional character.
Love is a crazy thing.
Yeah, it really is.
That is. I'll agree. That's kind of like, why did she instantly fall in love with him, other than the fact that she was physically?
Have you seen him, Mike?
She didn't see many guys come through the forest.
Look, here again. Let's talk about what you can do with this. Let's talk about what you can do with the story.
He's got those real kind eyes. He's very handsome.
It's Tony the Young. A little puppy dog in the end. Come on.
Look, let's talk about what you can do with a story. They fight. They fall in love. They get married. I'm in the spice trade or something. Sorry, I'm reading Dune right now. But it's like, what, I am. I'm a spice girl. No, I'm salty spice tonight. No,
totally.
But what if she discovers what he actually does for a living and how old he is? That's another thing. Like, does she know how freaking old her husband is and what he's been up to for 1,000 years?
We're gonna do the ages in relationships right now.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is a conversation in any relationship. But here's the thing: instead of the tired old thing of like some people show up and assault and kill the wife and there's a fight or whatever because of this rivalry or this bad blood, what if she leaves Wenwu and that drives him insane or something, and that's the quest to get her back?
We do have some comments.
Here we go.
Sorry,
we missed the show too here.
Oh my gosh! Hey, Sajua, how you doing? He's joining us for a bit. Yeah, sorry, I had the comments off and I clicked them on. So yes, I am the deconstructor. That's right. Actually, I think that was one of my favorite jokes in Adaptation, the Nicolas Cage movie, about a serial killer named the Deconstructionist. But no, I think there are so many places you can go with this template of characters that this movie is just not interested in fully developing, and that's what's kind of disappointing. And as far as the martial arts sequences, I was not impressed with any of it. Partially because we talked a bit about this we have seen it all. we talked about this in the what if conversation earlier this evening with the whole like zombie genre thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of the Marvel universe, it's true, we haven't seen this, but we have decades of, martial arts cinema. We have, legendary stars like, Jet Li and Jackie Chan, very popular people. We've seen them fighting without the benefit of, CGI. And even when Simu Liu is doing the stuff on the bus before they get into the full like rubbery bodies, flying between halved buses, it's all moves that I've seen before. I've seen the thing where the guy comes at you and you like kind of force your jacket up onto your wrists and, twirl it around and all that other stuff. It's not even imaginative. They have the balls to put a Kung Fu Hustle poster in Shang-Chi's room. And I'm thinking, yes, that's what this movie needs to be. It needs to be inventive and exciting and weird. Instead, it's just the McMarvel version of a Kung Fu movie.
Marvel.
Is that a new phrase for
I don't think
As
there's any
an Irishman, I take offense. No.
There's no pink sludge in this movie.
God, just like watching a slow cinema where you've seen so many pictures of the same shore and leaves dripping water and
that's
things
a,
as well that
no,
aren't
Mark,
showing the exact same thing that something
that's
new.
a cliche. That's a cliche, but it doesn't hold up.
Hold on. You're bitching earlier about like why can't we like have the 70s roots of like having him loving kung fu movies? Because of speed of movie, him having a Kung Fu Hustle poster on the wall from what, 2003? That's kind of perfect to the timeline of this movie.
And they
it's trading
Afghanistan
for Vietnam. It's easy.
Yes, exactly. There's Big Trouble in Little
Well,
China.
no, I'm confused by your point, Don. What is it?
No, you're wondering why, like, why can't this movie call back to its origins of like going back?
I didn't.
Okay.
David made that point.
well, for David, then it's like if you're gonna move this up from the 70s to the aughts, you've done that with Kung Fu Hustle and with the idea of a John Woo-ish fighting, so or John Wickish fighting, I should almost say. So man, you're really nitpicking. I can't go where you're going, man. Neither one of you.
Here's the one thing.
Here's the thing. Like when I watched the John Wick movies, the John Wick movies, which are very much martial arts fighting inspired, I'm seeing stuff in there that I haven't necessarily seen done in other movies, or at least not as much. There is some imagination. There are reason for those movies to exist, and I have a hard time thinking that, as we mentioned with Marvel having all the money in the world, they can't hire the new generation of fight choreographers or an old generation of fight choreographers who have some tricks left in their in their stash.
Well, Shang-Chi shall return, and you'll see better fight.
Yeah.
The thing is,
man.
With
that's part of the
have you watch a lot of Asian martial arts fantasy type films, the themes that you're seeing in here and how they come at you at a breakneck speed is not anything that you're a stranger of if you've watched many of those films, especially motivations, the villain motivation, how things come together, how to play out. I'm not necessarily, I mean, you make some valid points, but at the same time, what I think they were going for and the feeling I got was for one of those films. So yes, you have a little bit more traditional fighting, but that's where Shang-Chi's origins are in how he was trained. And so you may not get as inventive fighting, but the fighting you get is the fighting that if you're a fan of those films, if you've watched a lot of them, you love that style of fighting. It is going, I think, for that vein of those fantasy films, not trying to give you something new as far as the realm of this genre of film, but presenting the elements that many people, especially because my kid is into anime quite a bit, and that if you love the genre, these are elements that you enjoy about it, and they were putting it all into this film. I get what you're saying, Ian, about some of it not being original. A lot of those stories do end up being very similar, but at the same time, people watch them because it has those elements that they love. They're not necessarily watching for something new. Now, you're looking for something new in a film. I get that totally. That's awesome. I don't think that that's what they were going for as far as reinventing the wheel for their formula and the martial arts action sequences. I think they were trying to go for what people love about this type of film.
Yeah.
And
that's why I call this the McMarvel Kung Fu movie. No, listen, it's just like when Popeyes comes out with their chicken sandwich and people are like knifing each other over it, and all of a sudden Chick-fil-A has their special chicken sandwich,
right?
And McDonald's has their special chicken sandwich, and they're like, look, we've got this chicken sandwich. Like, yeah, I just had one at your competitor like, a day ago.
Right.
It's just a chicken sandwich. There's nothing new to it. So when you say yes, there's it's a tradition. There's not a lot of motivation to the characters, and there's holes in the plots and all that stuff. I understand that, but I don't want to pay money to go see a quote unquote new movie to see something I've seen 1,000 times before and see it this overly praised.
And
Black Widow.
Black Widow, talk about formula.
Yeah.
Holy,
come on now. Come on.
No, listen. Black Widow had
Black Widow last 6 years.
Black Widow had the same third act problems that most Marvel movies do, but in the middle of it, it had some of the unique spins on family and identity that were not fleshed out as well in the other Marvel films.
Pig, Ian?
Suffocating pig? David Harbour immediately when he has the.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
She said suffocating pig.
Suffocating pig. What?
I'm lost.
In Black Widow, the suffocating pig.
When Rachel Weisz kills the pig.
Yeah.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Stop breathing. Get up now.
Okay. Okay.
What? I understand that was the thing that she did, but what?
That was in the second act of the movie. That's your family dynamic.
Oh,
and it sucks in that movie.
I understand what you're going for, but I don't. Yeah, let's move on.
Oh boy.
It all depends on what you're looking to get out of this film. For me, in all honesty, when I watched the trailers, it did nothing for me. I was actually going to go into it going, okay, because they would play the trailer of Snake Eyes, then behind that, they would play the trailer of Shang-Chi. And when I'm watching it first, I was like, what everything that the Snake Eyes did wrong, what they were trying to go for, Shang-Chi got correct. So possibly, maybe if I hadn't seen Snake Eyes first, maybe I would have felt a little.
You're the one guy who saw that?
Yeah, I am the one guy who saw it. And I get what you're saying. It's what people, I think, but a lot of people, what they're looking for in a film, especially nowadays, this is comfort food for you. And I get the cliches and everything. You make some valid points, but at the same time, I think the reason some people are really enjoying this film is because it does have those familiar elements and things we've seen before, because people, I don't think necessarily are always looking for something new. It's comfort food. It's the reason why, and I know I'll get hatred for this. I get hatred for it in my own horror circles. I love Maximum Overdrive. I will watch Maximum Overdrive every day of the week if I really wanted to. But I know so many people who say it's such a crap film. And you know what? I fully recognize all of its warts. But let me tell you, when I watch Maximum Overdrive, I know I'm going to enjoy it. Shang-Chi is a film that, yes, it hits those normal points, those complaints, those holes, but at the same time, it's familiar to people. They enjoy it. It's not as dark. It stays rather light even when you get into the dark stuff, because people, I think, right now in the culture want that, because everything is so heavy in the world. I'm not saying it necessarily gives them an excuse to make something lazy. I'm just saying where I think some of the praise is coming from is just the fact of people want this because we have gotten a lot of heavy cinema. We have gotten a lot of heavy films, and the world nowadays is even heavier. So while for many cinephiles, this isn't what they want to see from a film like this, for a lot of us, I think this is exactly what people were hoping to see, because you could just chill and enjoy it and see the stuff you love while you may have seen it before. It's the same reason why I loved the What If episode, is because it had all the elements of things that I really enjoy watching, completely acknowledging if I go actual critic, I could be very critical. But then again, my buddy and I have watched Star Wars. It's ingrained in our DNA, yet you should hear us do the riff sessions on a film that we absolutely love. But at the same time, we can pick apart that film from start to finish if we wanted to. But we do it out of love because we still enjoy it. And I think that's what here is for Shang-Chi, at least me personally. I don't want to speak for the panel, but for me personally, is just, this is all the stuff I love. I love these types of films. It had all the elements that I was, and I was impressed that they went full fantasy in the third act with the dragon and the beast demon coming out. I was like, I did not expect to see a full-blown big demon come through the gates. I figured we'd get the bats and then he'd stop him before the big guy finally breaks through the gate. I didn't think we'd actually get big gate and dragon fight. I'm like, cool, they went there. I did. Yes, is it a bit ridiculous? Absolutely, but they went there, and that for me was exciting because, again, I did not think that they would present stuff like this, much like with Doctor Strange, where they went with it. I did not expect them to go that committed to it because they've got a history of sometimes pulling back a bit depending on the material. So when they do commit to something like this, for me, it's a surprise. And so I came out of it, my son and I, very entertained, enjoyed it. Yeah, nothing new, but at the same time, at the end, I got my money out of it. I was entertained.
And as the non-trailer guy of the room, where I didn't watch a thing of this. I mean, I know who was in it, but I didn't watch a single thing of this. And I enthralled the entire time. It was amazing. You know, I didn't know Wong was going to be there. I didn't know Abomination was going to be there. I forgot Michelle Yeoh was going to show up later. And yeah, I was compelled the entire time. I did the bus scene is not, you know, as super surprising as maybe the bus scene in like Nobody, but it did the job. Like, oh wow, we're just going to develop like this. And yeah, I didn't have expectations other than just let's see them apply the full magic to a place they can try. And yeah, I'm with Mark. Full fantasy is a blast.
I had absolutely no clue with this character. All of you are far more knowledgeable or even familiar with this character than me. I had no clue who this guy was. I'm like, wait, they're making a movie of this? And this is what I want from Marvel. I want them to present these characters that I've never heard before, only that you hear about in the comic book stores, to get me interested to go seek out more, which I want to now about this because I loved the world. And if it's anywhere at all, even remotely close to what was presented in the film, I want to seek that stuff out and read it. And that's what I want. Captain America and all those faces. Yeah, we've got those in phase 3. Give me phase 4 with these new characters who I have not heard of before because I'm not in those circles, and get me interested enough to seek out the actual material. And that's what this has done for me. I want to find more, of it.
Well, and that's cool. I mean, then the movie has done its job. I want to ask kind of off topic, but sort of on topic because we're getting back to the comics. Annie or David, have you read the new Shang-Chi series that's out? I think they're on issue 4. I have been reading the new Shang-Chi
series. I was inspired by the movie, actually, to, just as Mark was saying, to really explore this character in his true form and in his true nature, not presented for the mass media at a global standard, which I think is really authentic. Even though, again, I love Simu Liu, I think he's charming and wonderful and handsome and this and that, but at the same time, that's not Shang-Chi, right? That's some guy playing Shang-Chi. I like it. I think, again, it really does show that core authenticity of who this character is. It defines his motives besides just defeating the Mandarin or Wenwu. I think that it gives more depth than what we see of a 20-something, 30-something grappling with his post-first gen Chinese American background. I think that it's not made for cinema. It's made to be read, and you are allowed to interpret this character as freely as you'd like. It could be as personal or as foreign as it can be. Cool. I think it's written really well where anyone from any walk of life can really enjoy it. Yeah. It's nothing too gritty, too intense. It's very tame, while giving a proper introduction to who Shang-Chi is.
Cool. Yeah, I was looking at, I think the new release list for comic book day today, just to see what was out, and I think I saw like an advertisement for like issue 4 or something. I didn't.
Yeah.
I probably should have realized that there was going to be a tie-in or like a new
course.
series to coincide with it, but I just hadn't thought of it. So I'll have to go and try and track down like issues 1, at least start with issue 1 and see if I dig it. But yeah, David, have you read it?
No, I read. See, it's interesting because it is in issue 4 right now, but I think it was maybe last year or so, or within the past year and a half, there was also like a short, almost like a trial run of an update to this character, which is what we now see in this volume. So I don't know what volume they called it, but I did check out like maybe the first 1 or 2 issues of that limited run, and I enjoyed it. And then I didn't keep up with it because of budget, but then they came out with this new series, new volume this year, and it's very much keeping up with an update to his costume, which is very much like the movie and everything. And I like the fact that it's getting readers. I mean, if anything, that's awesome. I maybe I'll catch up to it in a trade, but it's just right now it's like it's one more thing. The typical comic collector thing that's like
Well, especially because now everything's like $4, $5, and $6. It's like my goodness.
Yeah. I'll wait for the library and the trade. Yeah,
but honestly, it is very fun and interesting to see to deep dive and see like some of the early comics. I'm sure you can pick them up somewhat cheap in a paperback form of when he was first introduced in the 70s, because there's some dated stuff there, and it's very interesting. And his father is like Marvel actually appropriated like Fu Manchu, and like that's his father, not not this whole Mandarin thing. I mean, that's totally an MCU thing. But it's interesting to see where it's come, and I actually kind of prefer that's the look of Shang-Chi that I actually like, is that whole bandana thing and the shaggy long hair, and I actually kind of drew somewhat of a
look at that guy go.
Hey, look at him.
Oh, look at
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't talk that like long this time. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
we're on
a buck
the
20 here,
comics.
guys.
I'm like, is that Liu Kang?
yeah. I mean, so it was a weird time in the 70s and 80s for Marvel to have all this stuff. I mean, you had Micronauts, you had Shang-Chi, you had, that's when Doctor Strange got really weird and everything in the comics, and so it was just it was cool to see all of this out there. And now I feel like this current comic is more for, hey, let's get these MCU viewers and turn them into readers.
Right.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. I mean, I think that if anything, however much these movies make, if they could turn them into readers, great.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before, but there's a new Moon Knight series. There's a new Kang, series that came out, and likely because of the tie-ins, and they're, from what I've seen so far, they're really cool.
Yeah.
So I used to think of it more cynically, like, oh, they've just got a comic book because there's a new movie, but it looks like they're, to what you're saying, David, trying to rope people in and not just giving them, hey, you could go see this on the big screen. It's like, no, there's a reason to come back month after month. But I'm, it's kind of late here, gang. So I appreciate all of you talking and doing some battle with me
5
here
against
this evening.
1.
Yes, but I feel like we all won.
Those odds.
The bus is still intact. But no, thank you very much for talking Shang-Chi. Thank you for joining in, the folks who checked it out and who will check it out in the future. Sajiwa, I didn't put all your comments up, but we did get the deconstructor thing, and he said he's going to check back at the rest of the conversation and check out the movie at some point in the future. So that's good. Got another viewer of this blockbuster coming up. So yes, as always, I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics, Don Shanahan of 25 Years Later, Mike Crowley also of 25 Years Later in YP Reviews, David Fowley of Keeping It Real, and Mark the Movie Man from Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room, where last night we talked Zardos, and Don kind of joined in. Yes, that was
Perfections.
Can't wait for that cosplay.
That's perfection.
You will never see that. Don,
Here, Annie.
Look, what?
Hello.
What?
Oh,
Huh?
What?
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 your shirt is what now, Annie?
Strange
My
shine.
shirt. Oh, my
Yeah.
shirt is
I
Breckenridge, Colorado.
Oh,
Oh,
there you
There you
go.
go.
Cool.
Oh,
Okay.
Beautiful little mountain town.
cool. Now
Rocky
I'm thinking of the
Mountain
South
High.
Park song
I got
from the
trans-
South
I
Park
actually,
movie.
when I was in Colorado, I did go to South Park. It's a
Oh, nice.
legitimate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa! Now, do they
Yeah.
How
have
about
like
that?
do they have like special gift shops and like
So
stuff about
they
the
did,
show?
ultimately capitalize off of that, but the one quirky thing about it that took me by surprise is that they have donkey races. So they run donkeys through the town as a yearly
right.
annual fundraiser.
All right.
Wow!
Gotta
Why
get
not?
exercise.
Cool. It was a
That's-
really neat
I
experience.
don't
That's-
remember
These
that
cookies
episode
and car
so
washes,
often.
I'll take
Yeah.
Wisconsin's got pig races.
I mean,
So.
Casa Bonita is supposed to open up.
Snowmobile races.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Wisconsin's got pig races. They
there.
race for Oreos. So
Wow.
Me
Well-
too. They're not special.
Wow! All right.
You race for Oreos, Hanny?
I do.
Oh, okay.
You learn something
who
about
doesn't
it.
race for
Here's the
Oreos, especially the double stuffed? I mean,
Oh yeah.
For or was that like a chia of Oreo?
I saw apple cider Oreos.
Ian, you're
in
gonna
store.
hit the button, man.
No, I can't. I want this to go on forever, but unfortunately I can't. So
I will
everyone,
say,
thank you.
Has anyone seen Simu Liu do a backflip at the Dodgers game?
I saw that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was more impressive than anything I saw in this 2 hour and 15-minute movie.
Old
Anyway,
man, Ian.
He did
Yes.
those stunts.
Hey,
That's what's
kids.
impressive.
wait, yeah, he jumped between the buses when I saw the motion blur on his rubbery
He's
limbs.
so good at martial arts, he can CGI himself.
Oh,
Sure.
we lost Don.
oh, we lost
no.
Don. Don got so
Don-
excited.
All right, I've had it with these
He's like, I'm
Just
done
that
with Ian.
circle, like
Yeah,
Doctor
I get it.
Strange.
All right, well, good night, everybody. Thank you, and we'll catch up next week.
Bye.
Yes, sir.
And ending now.